Welcome to the Strategy Mob Podcast. Tune in for everything you need to know to stay in the know regarding the automotive industry. Here's your host, Jason Harris.
Hey, what's going on, Podcast Nation? It is Jason Harris here, and thank you for joining me on another episode of Strategy Mob. Today, I have two very special guests. I have Mr. Kole Hicks, and I have James Lucy Lewis. I want to know the Lucy thing, man. Because I call you Lucy. Some people call you James.
I call you Lucky.
Yeah. For everybody out there that's watching right now or listening and don't know who you gentlemen are, let's start off with a couple origin stories before we kind of get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation today. Kole, I'm going to go ahead and start off with you. What is that origin story that is Kole Hicks?
So I used to be on Broadway. No, I'm kidding. I've been in the Canadian auto space, 25 years now. It's going on. It might think I actually dye the gray. I make it look grayer on purpose, but no. So I've been in the auto space. I grew up in Ontario. Came out of school like all young guys coming out of college, didn't know what to do, and then mom and dad had some friends that owned some car dealerships, and my dad says, "Hey, look at Marvin's boat." They had a boat in the same marina as Marvin Starr and a few of these other guys. And go, they seem to make money selling cars. Why don't you try doing that? So I started selling cars, and that had to be, what was that, like probably 96, 97 sort of thing. Started selling cars, worked in Toronto, the Roy Fosses and all those places. Ended up going out west for a decade, actually. I think I went out west in early 2000. That's where I started getting into auto finance, prime and non-prime, worked at some really good places. Came back to Ontario after having a family, been gone for a while. Mom and dad, they got the place up on the water, so wanted my kids to enjoy it summer versus, snow in June. That's Edmonton, by the way, little Edmonton plug. And I ended up moving out of the retail side of the industry and worked with Dealertrack for 7 years. And that was a great experience because it took me away from, I've been in the stores ever since college, right? I've been working, my first car job was Abcox washing cars when I was 15. So I've been in dealerships my entire life. But getting out of the retail side and going to the vendor side and an opportunity with a company like Dealertrack, I got to learn a whole new aspect of the industry, especially the finance side, the bureaus, the portal industry. And that's opened up the last chunk of my career. And since then, I've done a bunch of stuff. Dealertrack. I worked at a company recently, VP of Sales and Marketing. So I got to enter into the fixed ops side. So really, been selling cars or around cars a very long time now.
Yeah, once it's in your blood, it just kind of stays in there, right? Like you got bit by the bug, and once you kind of get bit by the bug, it's in there forever. Hey, Lucy, how did you get started in this crazy little business we call the automotive industry?
Well, I can tell you my story's not as long as Cole's, but. No, I'm actually, my 2-year anniversary was last week. I started with Canadian Auto Dealer 2 years ago, but before that I was business to consumer advertising sales for a fairly major, actually the largest media company in Canada, and then various roles before that. But that one really opened me up to the auto dealer space. Imagine traditional television and radio, auto dealers are the ones that traditionally still have budget for that type of media. So that's how I got my teeth cut, and really enjoyed just the conversations with those dealers. So that really opened up, my eyes to the world of automotive outside of auto racing. And from there, I found a pretty interesting position. Actually, it found me. And from there, I've been in the role with Canadian Auto Dealer, plugging away happy, working with dealers, but mostly with vendors. And one thing I've learned is that it's not a quiet room. It's always a fun room. There's a lot of energy, no shrinking violets. So yeah, it's a spot I think I'll find myself for a long time, I hope.
Hey, you just piqued my interest. You said auto racing. Do you have some relationship to that?
Yeah, I build and race endurance cars myself. So I have, I'm an Audi guy.
Nice.
You know,
Yeah.
the more I talk to Lucy, the more this becomes interesting, right? Like, I mean, beside the crazy awesome beard that he has now, you know,
Yeah.
it's the auto racing, the long range shooting. Like, Lucy just seems like a cool guy. Like, I want to come
Lucy,
hang out with you, Lucy.
I saw you just a couple months ago, and you were clean shaven, so I'm impressed.
It's the gray wasn't even there until about a week ago.
Yeah. So you built. I want to hear more about the cars. You got me a little geeked out on that. A little bit of my story, and I sold my rock crawler last summer, but I'd been in the off-road community both out west and here, and built a crawler. So yeah, you got me interested.
We need to talk about that. Well, you know TMR in Newmarket.
I know Tim quite well.
I bought the original amount of the original steel to build the roll cage in my endurance car from them. So yeah.
Did you buy one of their chassis, like their pre-built chassis? You just bought the steel out of it?
Bought the steel and then bent it myself, welded it myself. My brother-in-law and I.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's a home-built 550 horsepower Audi.
Oh, nice.
No, that's just fun passion right there. That is so cool. So I imagine, you know, in fact, that's a good segue actually into a kind of our first question of kind of like, what is the current norm for you? So James, I'll start off with you. Actually, do you want to go by James? Do you want to go by Lucy? Let me just correct something.
Lucy. Only Lucy, please.
Okay,
Lucy.
Only Lucy. I apologize. All right. Only Lucy. All right, Lucy. That's actually a good place. So what is that current norm for you? Are you spending a lot of time in the garage? Are you working on cars? Are you on the phone with the dealers? What's the current norm look like for you?
In all honesty, it's funny because the new normal is not normal. My days are longer and having a lot more conversations over the phone than I've ever had in my life. Mostly with vendors because we're creating a boatload of content now. Like everyone is, we're creating content, and that's all coming from the vendor community that's giving back to the auto dealer community. So my days are definitely longer, a lot more on the go, which is a great thing. A little less time in the shop, to be honest, because the supplies I need for the race car just aren't making it across the border. A lot of the stuff comes from the US. So yeah, it's a mix. The day-to-day is still a go, which I'm very happy about. Still get some time in the shop around the welder, but not as much as I'd hoped.
So Lucy, I'm gonna get that right, man. So Lucy, right now you're talking to a lot of dealerships out there. What are they saying? What are you kind of getting a feel for the temperature of everyone right now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think this week was a bit of a crux. Up to this point, it was crisis aversion. How do we do business? What are we going to do? How do we get ahead? And now there's the thought and the shift. It's almost paradigm where dealers are starting to say, now we have to plan for the future. If they haven't been planning all along, now's the time for them to focus on their businesses going forward. And good operators have been doing that forever. But I shouldn't distinguish between good and bad operators because I like to think they're all good operators. But now there's a real focus of, instead of working in the business, let's work on the business and find the new way forward.
Interesting.
Kole, for yourself, you're out there talking to a lot of people right now. What do you feel like the current temperature of the kind of automotive industry is?
So I've actually been talking a lot more vendors and dealers recently. A lot of companies on this side of the fence that are figuring out how they survive, or now with the dealers not spending money, anything with a SaaS model or a SaaS bill on it, that's being cut drastically. And yeah, absolutely. It's been panic mode, as Lucy, I almost called you James too, as Lucy said. But now it's, trying to find the solutions. I had a great conversation with a colleague the other day, and I think we've all been seeing it in Ontario. There's been some legislation, there's been some associations that have maybe been making it a little tough to get cars down the road because they don't quite comply. So I think a lot of people are trying to solve the problems, and we're going to get answers coming down of how to deliver a car, how to verify insurance, how to do paperwork, how soft signatures aren't needed. Hey, I've been on the vendor side for a while, and in my last role, we sold North America wide, and the norm, the difference for the norm for me right now is my kids are home all day, every day, and I'm trying to keep them occupied. Now, I got 2 boys, and I like them to be active, and unfortunately, every sport, everything they normally do is done. So, I can't say I'm working more hours than I used to. I definitely used to work more hours. But in a home office environment, right, we did contracts via DocuSign. We ran CRM tools. We did email campaigns. We did cold calling. Most of the dealers I've sold to in the last few years have never once met me in person other than one of the events, and I've never been in their showrooms. And unfortunately, these guys haven't been able to utilize the same technologies to help them sell cars right now.
That's a great point. In fact, a good segue actually kind of into what my next question is for you guys is, kind of what your thoughts and opinions are of kind of what this new norm is going to look like. I mean, I look, during the recession, all right, there was a monster buildup of demand, and we came out of that recession, and it's like the industry just kind of went and just kind of exploded, and we rode that wave for quite some time. And we've been running double-digit gains, like quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter. This last year we finally just kind of plateaued out. We were going into this new year also, I think, with kind of a plateau. So I think a lot of people have already been kind of discussing like what they need to do next. But the one thing I found interesting is during the recession, that I'm finding right now is that a good operator is a good operator. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on. They're a good operator. And I think right now, for myself, is going into this new norm, is that just half-assing it is just not going to cut it anymore. Like, you got to make a very hardcore commitment to your customers, all right, and give them the ability to kind of steer the direction of that process if they're going to succeed. But enough of my kind of thoughts and opinions. I actually kind of want to hear your guys' thoughts as far as, what we're going to see going into this new norm. Whenever the hell that happens, I'm not going to pretend like I know what date it is. I love how people are magically throwing dates out there like, the second Tuesday of June will be back to normal. I don't know what the hell. Anyways, Cole, I'll start with you. How do you see the new norm kind of progressing for us?
I think, I'm going to talk digital retailing for a minute. And obviously, I was kind of keen into that a moment ago. And I got a little bit of experience there because when I was with DealerTrack, we were just bringing digital retailing to the Canadian market. And it's been a buzzword for quite some time. It's been a huge buzzword, but it hasn't been true. Until you can introduce finance, wet signatures, digital signatures versus wet, and home delivery, it's not really being digital retailing yet. And I think what we're going to discover is by force and necessity, because our consumers right now are getting trained to buy online. Hey, most of us are Amazon shoppers and we buy things online. There's a huge part of the population that have never done that, or that's not the norm. Well, unfortunately, it's the norm now. You want groceries, you order them online and do a curbside pickup. You want something from Lowe's, you order online, you do a curbside pickup. And I think we're going to now train our population into expecting that type of experience from the dealers. And I think our dealers, as much as they want to be able to do that, things are going to have to change to help them do that. I think credit, ID verification, fraud, my God, that's a whole conversation, but we're going to see crazy fraud opportunity come out of this. What's the new norm? I think we're going to be able to tie showroom to digital and digital to showroom, but there's some hurdles to get past that.
I'm with you. I think I love how people call it the new norm, and in fact, I should probably use a new term because really what we're talking about is not new. 15 years ago, I was drop shipping Corvettes all across the country. Sight unseen, they actually deliver it and pick it up at a notary's office so that the notary can actually determine that it is the right person that has actually signed the documentation. Like, it's not necessarily new. It's just, I think the customers always kind of wanted it. It's just, we've just held back for so many years saying, we're not going to give this to you. We're not going to give this to you. We're not going to give this to you. We're going to hold on to it. We're going to hold on to it.
I have a good point on that. Actually, it's not the new norm. It's been a subprime pre-approval and funding process for 20-odd years.
For a long time.
In 2002, we were delivering cars everywhere in Alberta. We were sending contracts. We were doing everything via email, fax. It has not been a regular retail experience. It's been the non-prime or subprime experience. And now we're going to adopt some of those processes that have been done in that realm over to here now.
That's very true.
I agree with that.
Lucy, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this too. How do you see the new norm kind of progressing for us?
Yeah, so the novel norm is what I'll call it on my side. But
I like
really, I agree. I agree with Cole that this is the harbinger of change. We've talked about it in the industry for 10 years that this is coming. And until there's a major, mitigating factor that forces it to happen, it doesn't happen, right? We just continue to do business as we've always done business because that's how we've been successful for 100 years. And now this is changing it. There's no way you can neglect the digital journey, the lead up. We've been talking about digital retailing from a marketing standpoint, and all the vendors in the world saying, well, we can help you market your business online, and that gives you a digital presence and your digital retailing. But it really wasn't. No. It was just a way to find cars, and then for you to hopefully have your salesperson pick up the phone, invite them to the dealership, and then do business inside the dealership for 3 hours.
Or a three-liner or a macro credit app, right? A form submission isn't digital retailing.
No, and who in their right mind is going, I shouldn't say, but who in their right mind is going to fill out a form if you're going to buy something on Amazon? You want to buy your groceries, for example, are you going to fill out a form first? No, you're going to do everything stem to stern and then go pick it up. So I think what's going to happen in the dealership is be more of a hybrid approach, and that omni-channel approach that everyone talks about, where it's up to the customer. And I think what's going to enable that is more of a one-touch sales process. So when looking at F&I and then putting that into the digital journey up front and allowing customers to have the ability to choose the entire package, they can go to the dealership if they want to or if they don't. But that journey is exactly how they want it to be shaped. Instead of forcing the customer into a certain box in the journey, now opening up and saying, hey, you know what, it's safe. If you want to come to the dealership, we can serve you here. If you want to do this entirely at home and we deliver everything to you and everything's digital, we can do that.
Absolutely. And it'll be received. Like, I always reference Brian from Paragon Honda. I'm sure you both know them and their story. His online presence, his service, how they changed. But they have kiosks in the showroom. You can come in and do your financing on a kiosk and be ready to sign contracts in 15 minutes. It's because the in-store matches the online, and the online can match the in-store, and they're connected. Doesn't mean that I have to, and that's one of the biggest hurdles for the longest time is I might do all this pricing structure, trade evaluation, everything, black book online, and I walk in the store and we start the 5-hour sales process again.
Yeah, we can't have
actually
that.
Like a 5-hour sales process. Like I've yet to meet someone who goes, oh God, that was the best 5 hours I ever spent of my life. I can't wait to do that again in 4 years.
It'll be a little bit. Not every dealership's like that. We all. I can name off a handful of phenomenal operators that are clean, smooth, efficient. But I'm being a little cheeky, right?
Yeah, and it's funny because so previously I worked in an Apple store. I was an expert in the prairies, and one of the most interesting things is there are people that want to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours with you, as long as they're being efficient and they're only talking to the minimal amount of people. You own that journey. They own it with you. You become a trusted advisor.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, I think as long as there's value in the time, then it's perfectly fine. But I think the issue is that our traditional sales process doesn't necessarily bring value to the customers as much as it brings just value to me as the dealership. I think what we're forced to now is we have to kind of reevaluate, and it's in this very competitive time, which is what will be now and the moving forward, even more so competitive, is how can I bring value to that customer? How do I exceed that expectation? More than just being able to sell them a car. How can I connect with them at that next level? Cole, what are your thoughts?
Well, okay. A moment ago, you talked about putting a round peg through a square hole and vice versa, and it actually has me thinking about that kids game that has the triangle, the square. That every customer has a different need, a different expectation, and it has me thinking. Okay, so digital retailing and being able to purchase a car online and pick my F&I package and finance and have it show up, it's not going to work for everyone. But there is a segment of the population that's how I want to buy a car. A buddy of mine bought the 5th household car a year ago, and he was calling me all the time going, so why are they asking me these questions? And then, ultimately it comes down, he's at one shop, and he's driven this one Toyota. It's for one of the kids. He's never going to sit in his life. He just wants a deal. And the guy's asking, oh, you got to go on the test drive, or I need the credit card before I can give you numbers. He's like, I I don't need to go for a test drive. I've been in one. Aren't they all the same? And honestly, I'll never be in this one again. So once again, people are trying to shoehorn him into a process that wasn't hit. Like, honestly, also what I'd say was, have you shopped somewhere else before? Do you want to drive it? Do you want a number? What do you want the number to be? Guy would have signed probably like a 5-minute deal. But that has me steering back to every consumer is going to have a different way they need to be treated and handled. We've almost gone full 180 because we can't do in-store right now. It's going to be all online. But at some point, they're going to come back, and I think we're going to have to be able to marry the two.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, about the time where we do come back, right? Like, what does that reality kind of look like? I mean, I don't know if it's a couple months from now. I don't know if it's a couple weeks from now. Hell, I'm not even going to pretend like I know when it's going to, be back to normal. No. But at some point in time, the government's going to come out and tell everybody, okay, come out of your cave. You can come explore now, but even with that said, like, we're not going back to normal. I was talking to a neighbor, across the street the other day, and, who was taking the train from Milton to Toronto, every single day. Doesn't actually own a car. Well, they own one car, but that's just for the weekends, and I was like, so are you going to take the train again? He's like, hell no, I'm not getting back on that train. So he's like, he already asked me, he goes, Jason, I'm thinking about just getting one of those cheap Corollas, those ones that are like $300 a month. And I'm like, yeah, that works well. He goes, okay, cool, I'll buy one of those. But it was the way he was talking about it was so nonchalant, just like, yeah, all right, fine, yeah, $300. Okay, that'll fit my needs. But I think that's going to be kind of a new norm for a fair amount of people.
It's going to change how people react.
Well, it's also interesting to think where we are right now, because we're sitting in the prime shopping windows, right? Let's say a 9-week sales process where people start doing their research 9 weeks out before the purchase. That was 6 weeks ago. That's when people started doing their shopping. And let's say this lasts another week, another month, another 2 months. All that's going to happen is those people that aren't buying cars right now are building up in a queue as a crush that are still going to need to buy a car at some point when they're able to. So whether they're in store or they're doing this fully online or some sort of hybrid along the way, the ones that are going to succeed are the dealers that can accommodate that A, can get inventory quickly, and B, can satisfy the customers the way they need to be satisfied. And I think that's the big thing right now is that dealers are sitting on inventory that can't move, but at some point it's going to. It's just going to, there's no way that it's going to sit there.
It's how do you accommodate? Like, let's talk about that, right? Because I think, what it is like, and Cole, you were mentioning it, it's like you kind of have to give the options, it's like, I'm kind of getting annoyed with people that are thinking that digital retailing is a piece of technology when it's not. It's a process.
Yep.
Like, we're talking about a process. Now, are you going to use some tech to simplify elements of that process? 100%, right? And that's normal. We've always done that, right? But I think what it is that we can't have one process anymore. I think a dealership needs to train, develop, and coach its staff for 5 different processes. And the customer is going to have to choose which one of those they feel more comfortable, participating in when it kind of comes back to that new norm. What's your guys' thoughts on that?
What you just described, and someone asked me a little while ago what I did, and instead of me saying I was a salesperson, I called myself a problem solver. And I've always trained the guys around me to be solution-based selling. Discover the problem, offer a solution. And I think that's hitting exactly what you just said, is that the dealership, it's not going to be the 7 steps of selling a car, the Joe Verdi version, get a credit card before offering payments, $4. It's going to be, what is the problem with the person in front of you and how do we solve that problem? And is that online? Is it in person? Does it require a test drive? Does it not require a test drive? Is it dropping off on the house? Is it not dropping? Like, it's customer experience. Jason, you and I have talked about customer experience before. How do we sell a product? Create an experience, make sure that experience solves the problem. Normally you can sell something when you're doing those steps together. And I think that's what we're going to see. How do we continue to create the experiences of the car buying experience, and how do we solve these modern problems we now have? Like, you can't do a wet signature, or you can't test drive in a driveway, or you can't, like, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy what's going on.
It's crazy, but I think it's actually good at the same time. Like, I think it's actually really healthy for us that we're getting kind of a kick in the ass in the sense that we're going to have to create a process that's more relevant to the customer and benefits them more than it benefits us.
Yeah,
like
agreed.
we
Yeah.
know for the longest time, we get them into the dealership for a 3.5 hour thing. All right. We know that benefits us. I'm going to wear this person down until they buy a car from me. It's like, I hate to say it. I mean, I remember some of the first deals 5 hours into, the guy goes, fine, whatever. Fine. I'll just sign it.
Yeah.
Can I leave now? Can I leave?
I said I didn't want that undercoating. Well, I'll talk to the
Exactly,
manager and
right?
see what I can do about that, right?
Lucy, you're talking and working with a lot of vendors right now, and I'm just kind of curious from the vendor perspective. All right, of what is kind of the conversation that's going on around the water cooler when it comes to vendors, and how do they see the new norm kind of developing out?
I guess it really depends on what sector they operate in, right? Somebody in CRM is going to have a very different thought than somebody that operates in F&I or operates in staffing or training. The big concern right now, and has been for the last 5 weeks, has been vendors really need to, they know they need to support their dealers, and that's the way the process has been going, whether it's offering discounts or offering free product, or switching their manufacturing process to create hand sanitizer to supply their customers. It's all the shift has been around less how can we get something out of the dealers and how can we provide more value. They're doing the same thing. They're finding solutions to problems that dealers never wanted to have, never expected to have. So over the 5 weeks, really what it's been has been vendors providing those solutions to dealers and then trying to tell dealers about them without spending any money. It's the truth. If you're not asking dealers for money, there's no revenue coming in. There's absolutely no way to market it. And the challenge is marketing managers, whether you're in a dealership or you're in a vendor, your job is to spend money. If you can't spend money, you're pretty much hamstrung. So the challenge has been getting that content. How do we get what we have going out to dealers effectively and efficiently? So that's the way I've seen the last 4 weeks. This week's actually seen a bit of a really interesting change where the same with dealers, vendors are starting to say this is going to break. As the good weather comes, this is going to break, and hopefully it's going to mean, we're back up and running. And they're starting to strategize of, what does May look like? What does June look like? And starting to really build a bit of a strategy to hit the ground running when it does come back. Because they realize dealers are going to need to sell, and they need to sell into dealers as well.
Just adding to that, I think the realization this is not a 2-week thing. We've come in past 2 weeks. We're coming past 3 weeks. We're into 4 weeks. Okay, this is real. So no more Netflix. How do we figure out how to actually move forward?
Absolutely. One of the interesting things I've thought that's come out of all of this is that there's downtime. And if dealers are taking advantage of the subsidies from the government to try to keep staff employed, why aren't they focused on training? Why aren't they using this time to make the best staff they can have so when people come back? Because having a piece of technology is great, but if you don't have the people to actually operate it properly, the technology is useless.
Well, I think that's a good point. In fact, actually, that's a perfect lead way into my next question for you guys is preparation. Look, as an industry, all three of us have been around long enough to know that we have a reputation in the industry for being reactive, right? We just kind of react, but I think this is a perfect time for us to get proactive in our marketing efforts, proactive in our training efforts. And I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts and opinions of what a dealership should be kind of doing right now to be proactive and get prepared for what's to come. Kole, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, sorry guys, I lost audio for a moment there, but I think I got the gist of it. I signed up for, I've been using this Udemy course, which is an online learning platform. I signed up for an advanced Google Sheets course today. Why not sharpen up a skill set? I look at a lot of Excels and Google Sheets. So, why don't I take some extra hours and hone a skill? And I posted on LinkedIn this morning, but I think it's the same thing. You got a lot of staff that are laid off, sit at home. What would the investment to a dealership be if they did the Grant Cardones or did a program and put a training program for the next 4 weeks together for their teams? Engagement, probably less turn for staff. They come back, minimal expense, probably completely written off by the government and subsidies, but I completely agree with you, Lucy. So we can't necessarily sell cars right now, or not at the same volumes, or not all the same people. But what are the million things we wish we'd been doing but we've been too busy to do. Got some time on your hands.
Lucy, what are your kind of thoughts? And I'm going to change yours just a little bit, more on the vendor side, because I feel like you got that pulse really solid on the vendor side. How can vendors right now, get prepared, to assist the dealerships in being proactive?
That's a great question. And I think part of it is coming out of their shell. As Kole mentioned, this isn't 2 weeks. This isn't we can stop doing what we're doing, and then when it comes back, there'll be no changes. I think the big thing is that as this drags on, dealers are realizing that, or maybe they're not realizing, but as a vendor is offering a discount on whatever the program is, vendors or dealers are starting to say, well, what am I spending my money on? They're actually taking stock of what works for them. The term, $99 or $299 to death.
Just one more car sale.
Just one more. Right. And they're taking stock in that. I think everyone has, and we talk about this at NADA, is that everyone is being a lot more strategic in the way they partner with their partnerships. So dealers are looking at strategic partnerships with their vendors. And I think aligning, with, and it goes back to knowing exactly what their dealers need. Is it a growth within the dealership and getting them to grow out with more of the products within your umbrella? Or is it growing with more dealerships with one core piece of your product? And I think really what vendors need to do is hash out that plan. Are we growing with the dealers that we already have great partnerships with? Or are we going to use this as an opportunity to leverage dealers that may be open to change that were not open to change before, right? And as more platforms, let's say digital retailing platforms come on the market, full omni-channel digital retailing platforms, that has to be a strategy that those vendors have, carved out. Is it conquest or is it growth from within?
No, that's very true. I mean, I think at the end of the day, as vendors, as dealers, and just businesses in general, that, we're going to have to provide more value than we've ever provided in the past. And, I think what it is that there's going to be, coming out of this, there's going to be demand, but we're going to need to be prepared for that demand. We're going to need to be able to work with the customers as far as how they want to engage and how they want to interact with us, not necessarily how we have defined they should be able to engage with us. I know it's getting towards the end of our time today, guys, and I want to thank you so much for jamming with me today. This has been a lot of fun. But before we go, I could ask my favorite question. And I know you guys had a little time to think about this during the podcast. So, Kole, I'm going to start off with you. Kole, what is pissing you off?
The fact that it's fucking snowing outside.
Yes. I know it's April and it's like, what the hell?
I've been cooped up inside for so many months, and then I got out and I raked my lawn and fertilized yesterday, and now it's snowing again. And that would be one thing of many. I wish, actually, you know what? I just wanted to say, so on my window, a little pop about that tragedy out on the East Coast, and I just got a little news feed. So I want to take a second and give all the best wishes and my support to all the people out there. And it's absolutely awful what we're starting to hear about. So I wish everyone the best and be safe. And I know it's challenging times for everyone. So I don't know. Maybe that answered the question somewhat.
It does. It does. You hate the weather. We get it.
I hate the weather. I want some.
Hey, Lucy. All right, you're up, man. What is pissing Lucy Lewis off?
Well, there's a lot of stuff that I can't talk about because it would be very, very poorly received. So I'll leave that stuff behind. Personally, my biggest issue is that of the 6 races in the endurance racing series this year, they look like they're not going to start until August. So we're probably going to miss half the season at the very least. Definitely nothing in the U.S. Can't hit Watkins Glen next month. Can't hit Gingerman. So that's a bit of a kick in the pants. Obviously, yep. I'll echo what Kole said as well, that in the grand scheme of things, what I'm pissed off about that affects me is really nothing in the grand scheme of things. Oh no, boo-hoo, I don't get to go race a car around a track with a bunch of buddies. One thing I'll say is I have a friend that owns an independent service station, and they have a contract with a police force. And one of the things that one of the mechanics had heard over over the radio was very distressing and depressing to hear that there are people in the community going through a lot of mental health issues right now as a result of losing jobs and being stuck at home. And that's the stuff that hits home when you hear something like that, you know, there are people out there suffering silently that, you know, they don't make the news. And obviously everything that happened on the East Coast is terrible. But, you know, there are hundreds of others every day that go through a very silent battle. And it's just making sure that we check on our neighbors and we check on the people we care about and make sure everyone's getting through it.
Yeah, well said. Well said,
Lucy. Hey, guys, for everybody out there that's watching and listening right now and would love to connect with the both of you and kind of follow along, you know, with what you guys do, what is the best way to do so? Kole, I'm going to start with you.
So 2 ways, Kole at autocorp.ca or my cell number, 705-896-5816.
Make sure you guys call for a good time. Hey,
that's an 88
I saw that on the bathroom.
Like I was like, you totally set that up for me. Thank you, by the way. Hey, Lucy, for everyone out there watching and listening.
Could you stand up, Jason?
No, absolutely not. I don't even have pants on.
Stand up.
I don't have pants on.
Let's do it.
No.
Come on, let's do it.
You guys want to see? You want to see? Okay, fine. Here we go. Ready? Check this out. Oh, see, I'm wearing shorts.
Boo!
I'm wearing shorts.
Boo!
Shorts.
Dude, it's all business up here, all casual down there. You know, I don't think I've actually put shoes on for like a week. Like, it's the best thing ever. I love it. Sorry. Anyways, I digress. All right, Lucy, you're up. What is the best way to connect with you, sir?
My email address is a little tough. It's jlewis, Lewis, at universusmedia.com. That's a tough one. So I'm going to say the easiest way. What's that?
We will definitely have to add that into the comments down below.
I think the easiest way to find me is LinkedIn. It's James Lucy Lewis. Probably the only guy with quotation marks in his LinkedIn profile. So follow me there. The easiest way, James Lucy Lewis at LinkedIn.
That's probably my best way. My Kole Hicks LinkedIn profile.
That's how I found
you. Did you call for a good time? I'm just kidding.
I did, yeah. But that was on a bathroom stall in the Queens and Barrie.
Wow, this podcast just took a totally different direction.
Wow.
Hey, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to jam with me today. I really appreciate it. You guys have yourself a good one, all right?